Well, if I'm not mistaken, Richard, I think altruism, the evolutionary rationale for altruism really only makes sense in a tribal context. So that like one of the silver linings of internecine tribal conflict was that in-group altruism got selected for. I don't know if there's any recent work on that, but that was my reading of things some decades ago.
Yes.
Now, that's not to say that we're stuck with tribalism as the only rationale for altruism, but in terms of how apes like ourselves became as altruistic as we are, it's thought that competition among tribes was the basis.
Well, I suppose a Darwinian view of altruism would go back to a time when we lived in small tribal groups, and there were two things about living in these small groups. One was that you were completely surrounded by kin, cousins, second cousins, siblings, nephews and nieces, and so on. And so there would have been a Darwinian incentive to altruism towards anybody you meet, because anybody you meet is a member of your own village, your own tribe, your own clan. And the second thing, the other Darwinian engine, motor of altruism is reciprocation. And reciprocation depends, or largely depends, upon encountering the same individual again and again.
Yeah.
And that again happens within the village, within the band, within the tribe. So there would have been a selection pressure in favor of within-group altruism and out-group hostility, xenophobia. So we can expect that there should be this tendency to despise the out-group and to be altruistic and cooperative with the familiar in-group. And that could be defined as people you've known all your life, people you were brought up with, people who look like you. There are all sorts of ways in which the rule of thumb for how to behave could have latched on. And it's a pretty depressing outlook when we've moved out of our tribal past and moved into big cities where we're no longer in small tribal groups. But we still have the same rules of thumb which work, and that is a good thing. We have a rule of thumb that says just, in general, be nice to anybody, empathize with anybody, because in the distant past, anybody would have been defined as your own tribe, your own clan, your own kin group, your own reciprocation group.
So I wonder if it's to our benefit to, there's a couple of potential ways to go there. One is to get everybody to realize that everybody still is part of our clan, that we are one human clan. I don't know, I don't have the magic solution to end the various divisions, but the others, maybe to get people to recognize that they can be a part of a number of different clans that overlap. This is how we build societies.
Right.
You know, I care more about my immediate family than I do my neighborhood, but I care more about my neighborhood than I do, you know, the broader world. But I can't diminish my caring for things outside my scope to zero, because we know that we have an impact on each other, even at great distances.
Peter Singer wrote a book called The Expanding Circle, in which he starts out by talking about this in-group, kin group, and then talks about the altruism broadening itself out to wider and wider and wider groups. And he would like that to include non-human animals as well. That psychologically we can extend our tribal loyalty to all sentient beings.
Yeah.
There were some folks out front with pictures of both of you actually lobbying for something along those lines.
Oh yeah.
Which was nice.
No, I think Singer's heuristic is the right one. That moral progress is generally synonymous with expanding the circle of moral concern to not just your family, not just your society, not just your race, not just your nation, but just, you know, outward, and to the point where ultimately you're concerned about the suffering of conscious creatures insofar as they can suffer. So it's not just humans, and it's if we discovered that pigs suffered much more than cows, well, then it would be appropriate to be more concerned about pigs than cows. And it's just that we actually care about the experience of conscious systems.
So as we do this, it seems to me that there's an issue that we probably will talk about here. No surprise to anybody, we're all pretty much politically on the left. We are godless heathens, we are atheists, we are secularists. And so are you, most of you, a good chunk. And the atheist community, the secular communities at large, have been growing leaps and bounds. The nuns are one of the fastest growing demographics. And because of that, on occasion, there is infighting. And I kept reminding people as I'd go out and talk, try to listen charitably, try to mirror what people are saying, try to see nuance, but also recognize that these are natural growing pains, that it may in fact be viewed as a good thing that there are little divisions, because at one time the atheist community wasn't big enough to be able to afford risking any division in the same way we did with tribes. But this idea of I'm concerned and there's a circle that radiates out produces, to me, a problem where someone else's circle is different, but they view me as if my circle should be the same. This fallacy of relative privation, that the thing that's most important or the greatest risk for them should also be the greatest risk and importance for me. And I can tell you that while, Islam may be the motherlode of bad ideas and the greatest threat to freedom worldwide, it's not necessarily the greatest threat in my living room or in my neighborhood or even in Austin, Texas. How, and you guys have both experienced this, as have I, where someone on the left in the atheist movement has a mission, this is my pet thing, and anybody who doesn't fall completely in line with that gets labeled as if they're an enemy rather than that they're just not as pure an ally as they might be. How do we start, or do we start? Do we just allow the divisions to continue, or do we start building bridges and talking about this issue that what's important to you is important to me too, but it may not be as important to me because I'm dealing with this?
I think you put that very well, and I mean, it's sort of ridiculous in a way that somebody can't see that just because different people concentrate on different things, that doesn't mean that we don't think everything's important. I mean, exactly the point you've made. There are lots of different issues around which we can tackle. Some of us are interested in one, some of us are interested in the other. We don't have to despise people just because they're preoccupied with a different one from us.
But I think you're also talking about disagreements in the atheist community.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, or what I've noticed among atheists that concerns me is really seems like the consequence of identity politics on the left bleeding into the atheist community, or insofar as the atheist community skews left, it inherits a lot of the very liberal and in many cases regressive convictions of people on the left who think that to criticize Islam is tantamount to racism, say, and they don't really think too clearly about that, or that the only reason why, as an atheist, you could be more concerned about Islam than Anglicanism, say, that has to be at some level of an expression of your own hostility and xenophobia toward Arabs or people from the Middle East.
Yeah, why do you guys hate brown people so much?
Exactly.
This is the sort of oversimplification. I remember it goes back, why do you hate the troops and all these other things that were done in a humorous sense, and now they're being done in a serious sense because you two aren't as ideologically pure as I am, or you're not as ideologically pure as Sam,
But it's not just a difference of emphasis. It is to put it charitably, a difference of opinion about what it means to focus on, in this case, on Islam. But in my view, it's complete confusion about the nature of the focus and what it is that would cause someone like me or Richard to be more worried about jihadism than what the Scientologists are up to, or the Mormons.
You shouldn't have said that.
I mean, I'm worried about many things, but I'm worried about some things more than others, and I accept that you might be worried about other things more than others, and they're all important.
We're also just confused by the label of atheism. That's why I think atheism is not always the best construct here. If you're, rather than think of promulgating atheism, just think of opposing dangerous, bad ideas. And that will of necessity put you in opposition to many, many, many religious ideas. But some religious ideas aren't all that dangerous, or they're not all that well subscribed, or you barely encounter them ever, right? And so you can't really prioritize those. I am tending to prioritize the ones that are showing up in the news every day and are clearly, absolutely, just, there can be no doubt about this, and yet there seems to be doubt everywhere. They're clearly the proximate cause of some of the most horrific human behavior, and it is behavior that would not happen for another reason. I mean, this is another source of confusion. People think that the world is just filled with bad people who would do bad things anyway, and they're just finding religion as a pretext, right? So the Christian scientist who is not giving insulin to her diabetic daughter, would do something equally crazy anyway without religion. That, there's no reason to think that. And
that's spot on, absolutely right.
And by the way, if you guys, we're probably pretty close to maybe bringing the house lights up a little bit and lining up to begin questions as we kind of talk about this. But what you're saying, I agree. It would be just like saying that somehow or another, the people who hate homosexuals just managed to all be part of the Westboro Baptist Church, rather than the Westboro Baptist Church cultivated these ideas.
Yes.
Somehow or another, when we were putting labels on things earlier, it was in the United States. It's not all Republicans are racists or are white supremacists, but pretty much all white supremacists align themselves with the Republican Party. So it would be silly to think that there's not something there that at least waters these ideas and maybe nourishes them as well.
Yeah. And the people tell us ad nauseum these are the reasons why they're doing these things. They're not hiding their motives. So it takes a heroic act of self-deception and willful ignorance to say, despite everything these people are saying, despite the fact that they can point to the passage in the book that justifies the behavior is coming from some other source entirely that has nothing to do with how they're accountable.
The suggestion that these are just evil people who will find a way to let their evilness come out, and if it's not religion, it's something else. They're not that evil. They're righteous people. They think they're righteous. They think they're doing good. They think they're doing the will of their God. And they think they're going to go to heaven for it. They don't think they're evil.
Well, worse than that, they're actually not evil.
Yes.
Because they're just wrong.
Yes.
Right? And
You're quite right.